Hello, sir.
Hello.
What a special treat we have for everybody today. So we'll just give people, we got 5 people watching already. All right, we got some people in here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I see TD is in here, Tarot Destiny, my good friend. I have a special treat for you guys. This is my good friend. This is Rick Paul, the Waistcoat Medium. He is over in England, and I met him through the Hutches. He is fantastic. And we have been talking for the last few months about doing a live together. So I wanted to introduce him, let you guys understand what he does. He's a different kind of psychic from me, but we're both fabulous. So Rick, we met through Paul and Mel, the Fitness Hutch and the Fittest Hutch. I met them through Trevor Colt, and then I was on a live. They introduced me to you. If you guys aren't subscribed to his channel, go over and subscribe to Rick right now. And I'm going to put a link to his channel on here. And so Rick, why don't you, so everyone on my channel knows my story of how I became a psychic, or how I found out I was psychic. It's very similar to yours, which is really cool. It's another reason why I like you. So when I was 10 years old, I lost my grandfather, and I was very close with him. I was probably, the closest out of all the grandchildren. And he came and shook my foot and woke me up, around the funeral, and let me know it was okay. And then just kind of it was on after that. Like things were just happening. I would know things before they happened. I would know not to do something because if I did, I was going to get hurt, and I didn't follow those instructions sometimes. I could predict what people were going to say before they would say it. Really, and I was like, oh, I'm telepathic. I know what people are thinking, but really wasn't it. I was just kind of predicting their behaviors. How did you find out that you had this gift and start to work it? How did you do that?
Well, like with all of my spiritual work, by accident, really was. Where we linked in, where I link in with the Hutches, is I met Paul when I worked at the prison that we were both at together. So I was in the prison service over here. I was at 2 prisons. I did over 12 years in the job. And what that taught me was how to compartmentalize a lot of feelings. Wasn't sure at that particular point what about working with energy, just that you did a professional job and feelings were something there that was to be kept boxed up. Anyway, as it come towards the end of my service, I started to realize that I wasn't coping with that sort of professional keeping everything boxed up. I was really starting to struggle. I think I'd become a little bit dehumanized when I was seeing some of the things I was seeing, and they weren't bothering me. And I've always been quite a sensitive person. I've always been, I embrace my weirdness. So I'm not looking here to upset anybody by talking about being weird. I embrace my weirdness. I have always been a loner. So it's been a force to get me to embrace teamwork. I've been very much been one of these sort of unorthodox people. So when I left the prison service, 2 things happened to me that really sort of got me onto this path. Was I ended up in hospital with a kidney stone, and I was talking to a guy that was about to pass away, and he said to me, he gave me a piece of advice, and he said, don't sweat the small stuff in life, because I was stressing. I was stressed up to the eyeballs. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life going forward. And he passed away in front of me a few hours later, and it left a mark in my head about don't sweat the small stuff. And then when I went back to work, I then see a colleague who comes to see me, and he then tells me that he's been diagnosed with a terminal disease, and he's not got long left to live. So I was absolutely frightened, worried, because 12 years in a job with steady money coming in, and we've both had this discussion before of where do you go next? So towards the end of my time, I started smelling cigarette smoke in my car, right, which I've never smoked. I don't have anybody in my car that smokes, but I didn't think anything of it. So when I
You
left,
didn't go to the mechanic and go, my car's smoking?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you smell something like that, there's got to be a logical explanation. So I'm very logically minded. So I would always look for that analytical approach before I'd even consider this. Because even now that I've been doing this 6 years, I still consider all of this ooky. It's all out in the sky there. And I'm just consider myself fortunate that I can do what I can do. So I decided at the age of 42, with a bad back, to go to college and learn plastering. Right, so plastering over here is like your drywalling, but we do a lot of wet compounds over here, and as well as the drywalling aspect of it. So to supplement that income while I learned, I went on building sites, and I was on a building site just loading out for the next lot of trades coming in, and I looked up one morning, and there in the corner he stood my granddad. Right? My granddad was a very unique character, and that's putting it mildly. If you're familiar, you guys over that side of the pond with Only Fools and Horses, my granddad was a bit of a Del boy. He was a bit of a ducker and a diver, and he would do things to get other things. And he was a funny character. We have a saying over here that's called cadging, right? And cadging means basically going out and trying to get something off somebody for free.
Oh, okay.
So he had a bag, right? This canvas bag that he carried. And in this canvas bag would be all of his gains that he'd got cadging. So he stood there in full spirit form with his cap on, and he stood there with his cadging bag on. And I looked at him, and what was interesting for me, what you said, was my granddad, I didn't have the best relationship with. He was part of my life, but we wasn't close. So I looked at this figure in the corner he'd been passed for 10 years, and then this vision just disappeared. Now, nothing out of the ordinary, I suppose, unless you consider he'd been gone 10 years. So that started me on the journey of where do I go? So I went to spiritualist churches, went training, and then it's ended up here. It's been, I don't know, I can't describe it. So when I spend a lot of time with people going, I can't do this, I haven't got the confidence. I'm going, right, I stepped out of a black and white world, corporate world of being a prison officer, where I knew what I was doing, roughly, to into this, where people are going to me, right, so you can see your granddad, you can see this, that, and yeah, so it's been fascinating, but weird.
Yeah. Who was the first person you told? That's a weird conversation. Like, I never told anybody,
I don't, that's a cracking question. That is, who's the first person that I told? Probably my wife, because she's the one that kind of keeps me level on everything, because my energy is like, I'm off all over it. So you come home and things start to make sense when you have a conversation with somebody who understands you, because that's half the battle, is knowing your audience, isn't it? That if you go and have a conversation with certain people, that you're going to be in for a load of Mickey taking. They are going to laugh at you because, it's just you, isn't it? But I'm going, no, this is deadly serious. I haven't got an answer for this. He was stood in that corner and I could see him as clear as day. Now, if you go over to your medical services and say to him, right, I'm hearing voices in my head, and you're going to end up on medication or wearing some padded tracksuit and be in a cell somewhere while they're checking on you. So
yeah, definitely a different conversation. My husband lost his best friend, and we had all sensed him here in the house after he passed away. And he had told me sometime after that he hadn't sensed him in the house, and I was really heartbroken for him. And sure, and I said, well, you should ask him to come and pay a visit. There was other stuff that went on too. And sure enough, he showed up. And my husband, who was a scientist, and really didn't believe in any of this stuff, he was transformed after that. And it was a very profound experience for him. So, but the same thing, like I went out to get a cup of coffee, and all of a sudden he had this apparition show up. And then when I came back in to get the coffee, I walked through him and kind of blew up the vision. So I felt bad. I kind of interfered with it. But it's a hard conversation to have, because people are either going to think that you're drunk or you're crazy. They're going to think one or the other. I mean, I did a controlled remote viewing here on Facebook and YouTube. And there was a comment in there. I don't care. Like, they can comment, but someone was like, "You are really nuts. You need serious professional help." And I was like, okay, well, sure. We all do on a good day. It's, you either can embrace this as a possible conduit to other worlds and other understanding, or you can be completely against it. It's not going to bother me. I mean, I don't understand, crazy science, chemistry. I don't understand that. It's not that I don't believe in it. I believe in it. I just don't quite understand it. I think there's enough proof in my life, and obviously your life, that there's really something to this. There's something to these different energy levels. And now my husband's like talking about alternate universes and concurrent universes and all these cool things. So, and he's more open to those being real possibilities rather than science fiction fantasy, which is really cool. So what is your philosophy about this? Why do you think you do what you do? Why do you think you have this gift and you can do this? There's so many people like talking right now. My mom's side, hi CA, seems to be females only. My family too. A lot of the females have it, but my cousin Michael and my son has it a little bit. So I do think that it runs in families. But why do you think that you can do this? Like, what's the purpose of this gift that you have for you in your life, in your experience in this lifetime?
If you'd have asked me 6 months ago, I'd have probably had a different answer. I mean, like I was saying to you off camera, I am a big presence when I'm into a room. I'm a show off. I like an audience. So whether I'm nervous or I'm confident, I like being the center of things. And I've been like that since I was a very young child. But the gift side of it, when it come in, I went through big periods of darkness and depression and anxiety when I was younger. And my drawing for this is wanting to help bring upliftment in for people and show myself as an example, because I do not do orthodox. I do not do straightforward thinking. So I thought that if there's people out there that are kind of like hidden in the shadows, that have had bad experiences, bad relationships, trauma in any form or another, I don't want people out there thinking that they're on their own, because there are other weirdos out there that have maybe got the same thought process. So when I started out with all of this reading business, I thought, all I want to do is to be the one thing I've always been good at in any job that I've been, is that support mechanism. So in the prison service, Hutch can tell you lots of different stories in the unit that he was in, what required him to be the leader. Whereas with me, if I went into a situation like that, I would quite happily be behind the leader as a prop to support them. So that carried naturally through to my spiritual work, where you'll get people, and as we're saying, it's an unorthodox thing, that will come out with stories that most people would either belittle or laugh at or just blatantly not understand. That stick a label on you, you're mad, you need medication, you need help. Whereas I go, no, right? I'm not interested in what other people think. I want to know what you think. I want to know where you're at. I am your spiritual guide. I am your on-earth angel. And I believe 100% in every client that comes and sits with me. But then the three words that come in that are magical for me, when everybody's told you the backstory, which people do, if you sit with a client for any length of time, they've got a backstory, good, bad, or indifferent. And I sit and I listen for the first part of the reading, and then I go, and then what? Because that's where you need to get into the reading and say, right, so you want this reading for whatever. So one of my first readings, I was stood afterwards helping at a little centre in Lincoln where I live. And I heard this lady say, I've just had a message off him. It was lovely. It was very therapeutic. And it was always down that helpful line. So I thought, right, if she's thinking that, how many other people are thinking the same thing? So it was all about helping in the beginning. Then I went down to Stonehenge. So I don't know how many people are familiar with Stonehenge. And the strangest things sort of started to come into my mind. 6 weeks prior to going to Stonehenge, I had a very vivid dream that I needed to go down to Stonehenge. Right. Now, to give you a little bit of my background as well, for a while I was driving explosives up and down the country. Right. So where Stonehenge is, if you go past Stonehenge, you go out onto Salisbury Plain. Okay. And this is where they practice being soldiers and using weapons and all of this sort of thing. They learn the fieldcraft. There's a lot of army bases around that area. And I'd always been one of these people hanging out the window and berating people for slowing me down because they were taking photos at Stonehenge. So I thought, spirit have got a very weird sense of humour if they want me down there for spirit work, because I've been horrible. So I have this.
Maybe they were trying to clear off the traffic.
Yeah. So I have this dream that I need to go down to Stonehenge. Now, I've just laid there going, why? 2 weeks after that, I then get a message from a mutual friend that runs shows and events and things like that. That's from quite a long way up country from us. So you've got Stonehenge that's down country, and you've got Newcastle, which is up country. And he said, right, there's an event I'm running. I'm part of the organisation team, and the medium or the psychic has dropped out last minute, so we're really in a bind. Do you fancy coming down to Stonehenge for 4 days and being the reader? So it sent a bit of a shiver through me, and I went, right, okay. So on the day prior to going down to Stonehenge, I was doing a house party at somebody's house. I did half a dozen readings, and then I thought I might as well just drive down there straight from here. So I turned up in the middle of this muddy field, dressed like this, right, with all of these people that, I'm not being derogatory here, but I'm telling the truth, that were dressed like hippies and druids and all of the rest of it. And then there's me, stood in the middle of this field. And I started to read. And it was like somebody switching a beacon on, and person after person after person after person came. And it started out with doing tarot. So I have a set way of doing my tarot, just working with the intuition and working with my guides and inspirers. But what I started to notice was all of these people were coming and they wanted healing. And spirit started showing me colours and energy around people. So I'm doing my usual sort of guidance and helping people with confidences and issues and things like that, which I always tend to talk about. But then I could physically grab hold of this energy. And I was getting hold of this energy like this with this one particular lady, and I'm pulling, and she's going like this, right? And I pulled this energy out of her like that, and I threw it out the door. And it had gone. And to watch her light up, and she went, I don't know what you've just done to me. And I went, no, neither do I. So the work there, when they talk about spiritual upgrades, I sat there and I said to you off camera, I'm not telling any different story on camera to what I was off. I was flying by the seat of my pants. I didn't have a clue what was going on there, but spirit provided me over the course of that 4 days and a never-ending supply of clients with different issues, but all of them with that common thing of supporting them. So that's what I see myself as. I've been told in dream state that I am a fallen angel, and my role with all of this work is to help support people so they can go back and pick up. It's kind of like a soul retrieval. It's how it's been explained to me, where if you've been in a place of trauma, then there's part of you that kind of gets left behind while you're dealing with trauma. So mine is to guide people back to pick those bits up so that they can go on. So essentially, I'm support crew,
That's
which
awesome.
that suits me down to the ground, because that is what I know how to do. I know how to support people, but I'm not very good at being the boss, like you are. What you've described,
But I'm actually not the boss, like, at all. Like, I'm more of like a cleaning lady. I hate to say it. I'm really good at like organizing and sorting things out and kind of cleaning them up. So like that's kind of how I work with people. But I love that you're like, what did you describe it as? Ground crew, support crew?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's like a really cool aspect. And fallen angel, like I get that. I get that from you. So I was actually going to offer people to throw some questions up as we got a little further down our intended script, but Jennifer came up with a good question, and I just wanted to address it before it got too far in the comments. So
yeah.
So Jennifer, for me, the difference between hallucinations and psychic abilities is that you can hallucination you can't control. If you're having like if you have some kind of organic situation or problem going on that you're having hallucinations, you really can't control them, and neither can the people around you. So when you are having psychic episodes, and you can see this on any of my lives when when I'm doing readings, if my crazy son comes stomping down the stairs and goes, "Mom, I need $20," like it'll throw me off my game for a minute. Not entirely. It's not like it's, smoke and it's in the wind, but I'll have to be able to kind of work back into it. Rick, how is it for you? Like, how do you differentiate between, and just to add a wrinkle, one of the things that I teach my students is how to differentiate from imagination and from your psychic abilities. Imagination, you can kind of build onto it. And we learn that in controlled remote viewing. It's called castle building. They don't want you to like get an idea and then kind of build this vision out of it. What you really need to do is keep distracting your logical mind and let the images come in. It's the intrusive ones that show up. So if I'm doing a CRV session and I'm in a field, and all of a sudden I go, oh, you know what? We have apples upstairs. Like, I really want an apple. And now all of a sudden I see like a red thing on the ground. And I'm like, okay, so maybe that's a piece of plastic. Maybe and I start to build off of that. I have to walk it back from there and make sure that I get all of that creative imagination out of there and kind of wipe the slate clean again and say, okay, I'm going to start off back in the field again and not think about the delicious, Honeycrisp apples that I have up on the upstairs table. So sometimes you'll get those kinds of things that you'll start to input into your psychic, your psychic impression, your psychic vision, whatever you refer to it as. So how is it for you, Rick?
There's a saying over here with the military, and it's one of my stock foundations, for want of a better word, and it's called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. So that's about as much as I can understand. So when I look at the word hallucinations, for me, that is an analytical kind of word for me, where I could put science behind that as to why you're having that experience. I could logic that I would then look at what is promoting that, what's your stress levels like, what's been happening to you during the day, why might you be heightened in that way. That for me would then be slightly removed from the situation. I would look at, so psychic abilities, right? Everybody, in my humble opinion, has the ability to be psychic, because it's a mind state that's a heightened mind state. Right. And it's an energy feeling. It's a vibration. We can all pick up on frequency. I should say the majority of us could walk into a room and sense if somebody's been having a fight or an argument, or if there's been something there previous that's been a little bit negative, or on a lot of places. Because if you go into buildings and put your hand on a wall, you can feel the energy of what's been in there. You can potentially pick up, people's energies in there. So that is the energy around the person. And then I look at mediumship. I need a simple explanation because I could disappear down a rabbit hole instantly. So there's a program over here. I don't know if it comes over to America, called Catchphrase. Right. And Catchphrase's tagline is "Say what you see." So that is literally my way of working. So if you imagine that, coming from whatever you believe in. So for me, I'm not a God person. I believe in the universal energy and the energy of the people. So somewhere out of the ether comes a tube, right? And down that tube is a load of energy, a load of rocks, a load of sayings, whatever, but it's got to come out somewhere. So it arrives around the aura. So we've got the energy space around us and it arrives at the aura. You imagine having your higher self that is stood there at the top, waiting to receive all of this energy coming down from from wherever it's coming from. Your higher self knows you at whatever level you're at. So if you've had a crap day, it knows you've had a crap day. If you've had a good day, it knows that you've had a good day. It also knows what your limitations are. So like my connection with my guides and my inspirers, it is no good them coming down to me and speaking in a foreign language because I wouldn't understand a word of it. It's no good getting over technical. So I wouldn't understand any. So I just see that it comes down from the spiritual self to the higher self. The higher self will filter it in a way that I can understand it. It comes down to me at an earthbound level. I just open my mouth and it just comes out. There's no training. There's no sticking your handbrake on or anything like that. It comes straight out the mouth. And I tell you something, it is scary because I am gobby. I make no apologies for that. But there are times where I wish I could rake it back in. You know, you've said something and you're going, oh my God.
Yeah.
Did that really? But
I've been there.
What I find with that, not only does it promote humor, but the times that it's correct is startling. Because as soon as you start, as a spiritual worker, as soon as you start to think, the analytical brain comes in and it will look for a reason and it will look for order and it will look for proof. Whereas if you're spiritual and you can step outside of your analytical side, it's great fun because everything is in play until it's not. So for me, I just have your psychic is always there and your spiritual takes work on because spirit know that we have a very real life to live in down here. So for those that will probably ask, right, I'm not spiritual all of the time. I have dips, but the thing is, when I'm working spiritually, as far as I'm concerned, in conjunction with them guys, I am bulletproof. So that's my explanation, and that's as simple as I can keep it, so it don't blow my mind up.
Yeah, that holds so true for me because that's the training that Lori Williams does in her controlled remote viewing class, is that you have to trick your analytic mind into doing something else. And that's why, with CRV, it's a reporting format. With tarot, it's the structure of that. Well, it's the cards, it's all the meanings in the cards, but it's also the structure of the spreads that you have to do. So when you're doing that, when you're laying out cards, when you're, occupying your mind otherwise, you can let those psychic impressions come through. Now for you, because you're a medium, like, I don't know how you shut that logical brain off and just like get in that toboggan psychic medium moment, where you're just bombing downhill going, this is what's happening. Hutch just showed up. Hi, Hutch.
But it links in neatly to that question that you've just put up, right? So again, what I'm going to say to you guys is, this is my perspective. This is not tried and trusted fact. The banner that runs across the bottom is entirely true. Well, another one of my core beliefs is that spirit do not get involved in free will decisions. So as a spiritual worker, I would never say against particularly anybody that's got a medical background, I am not medically trained. This is my opinion. This is with the connection that I built with my guides. But your free will of choice must always, always trump anything that is brought out with any sort of reader. Anybody that comes at you and says that your life's about to change and that this, that, and the other is going to happen, and you've got to prepare for the worst, right? I would get up and I would either switch the thing off or I would walk away from the reading, because your free will dictate how that path, because it's how you react to what's going on. So in regards to that question directly, you will notice sometimes with my delivery that there's a bit of a stutter and a little bit of a stammer, right? I don't get frightened doing these lives. I absolutely love them. I'm passionate about them. But in my background, I've had anxiety. I've had depressive episodes since I was 15, right? And there's been suicide attempts in my background and mental health difficulties. So in regards to medications and things like that, you must keep up with people that know better on that side. However, once you step past that, all right, then that is down to what you pick up on. So to answer that directly, yes, I believe you. I really do. So when you're coming at it from that, just be mindful that if you was to set out and do a professional reading for somebody, you would probably be better off explaining that that's where it comes from. Because the one thing that I do is honesty. So I would sit with somebody and I'm picking this, that, and the other up. And I always make it very clear that when I say I see, that's in my mind's eye. I've very, very rarely seen literally somebody stood there. I think in the 10 years since I left the prison service, so this is where my spiritual journey started, probably seen about 4 times literally, my granddad being one of them, where I could actually write you a description down. All of the rest of it is in my mind's eye. Now, that's kind of up to you guys, whether you decide whether that's going down that you've got mental problems or whether you're just totally in tune with your spiritual side. I've got a balance of both, because working with that sort of anxiety and that depression, I know that that's in the background. But like you were saying there about being on the toboggan, that is not allowed on my toboggan.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's shut off.
Yeah.
So when I'm working, what spirit give me will be a version of what I give across. So I hope that answers the question directly.
Yeah, there's no direct answer. You know that we could go on and on for hours, but I have a question now. I mean, Jennifer, I'm just going to wrap up her question. Like somebody who has mental problems and can see deceased people, that, that's a really subjective question. So we would have to really kind of take a look at that person. Like me as someone who trains psychics, I'd have to talk to them. There are people that I turn away because they're just not grounded enough. They want it for the wrong reasons. There's sometimes we do have to kind of point people in a different direction. Rick and I are not doctors. We're not witch doctors either. You're not a witch doctor. So, it just is, so she kind of fleshed it out. So, if it is a visitor and you or they tell the visitor to go away, they typically go away. They typically don't stick around when you say, hey, there's this great bright light over there and they've got cocktails and hors d'oeuvres and you should go that way because you're going to have a great time. Really that, like, if you ask them to leave and they don't, and that's something some of my students say to me. They're like, well, I'm afraid, like, what if like things start happening or not just my students, but people that I know, what if things start happening? Like, we've had stuff move in our house. We've had things, we have some paranormal action in our house. We're not afraid of it. If I could make it happen at, the right time with the film crew here, I'd be a multimillionaire. I'm not, because it just doesn't work that way. You can't get, your friends from beyond to perform like circus monkeys. They're just not going to do it. Even if you would get $1 million from, IDTV or something like that. But Rick, I have a question. So do you consider yourself clairvoyant? So just for everybody's purposes, there's a few clairs that we have to talk about. Clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. Clairvoyant, you see it. You see it in your mind. Clairaudient, you hear things. Clairsentient, you kind of sense things around you. So which clair do you lean into? Is it the clairvoyant more than anything?
Clairaudient.
Oh yeah, okay.
And clairsentient, and then if strangely, there's another one which I'd have to get you to check on, but it's something like clairgustance or something like that, which gives you taste. Right.
Oh,
So it's
I didn't know that one. I was going to
there's
say
actually
Claire
five.
Gustav. Like I'm eating. I love to eat. I'm a food person. Sorry, Hutch.
There's five. There's actually five. So all of your senses, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but like I will get tastes in the back of my throat that will give a link to somebody that's been around. So you get the taste of something, or you get the smell of something, and I get that quite a lot. I would say out of all of the senses, that so you've got claircognizance, which is clear thinking, because clair is actually French for clear. And
This
then
says
you
8. I'm sorry. This says there's 8 of them. I'm sorry.
oh, 8. Right, okay. I you know, the joy of
We're all
Google.
learning something.
But there's sort of, so I would actually put my clairvoyance quite low down of them, because it's very rare that I see.
Okay.
And when it where it has come in, what has made me smile, I had a client sat in this very room that I'm in now, and I did the reading with the cards and with the tarot, and I connected in with a relative. And then at the end, I always give them the opportunity to say, was that okay? Did it connect in? Because I always make sure that when I do a reading, that I never make any guarantees that I'm going to connect with a particular person. Because if you get that again, guys, with your reader, that is about their ego and about them being proven that they're good enough to do what they say they can do. Again, I would look at them people and just go, right, you're obviously not caring about me. So I sat there, and this lady said to me, she said, well, I was hoping that you would connect with my late husband. And I think I'd connected with a mum. So I looked at her and I said, well, the thing is with me, I'm not going to sort of say anything there that's going to try and fit into a reading and make you happy. I said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it up there, unless you could take this gentleman stood in the corner going like this, right, and dropping his trousers at me and pulling a moonie. Right, so showing his backside. And she went, oh my God. Because I'd said to him that if he's going to come through with any medium, do that. Because I
Did
want to
she
see how they
really?
react. And I'd already closed the reading down and said, that's me done. And so she sat there for that 35, 40 minutes listening to what we picked up with the tarot and the energy. I'd kind of like said I'd switched it off. And then she gets that. And that was the whole point of her coming. So I always look at readings and working with spirit, look at right and divine timing with that person. That they tend to it tends to gel. The puzzle tends to stick together. So I use all of the senses, because I never know what's appropriate to that person. But it's very rare where I can sit there, look into the corner of the room and go, oh yeah, she's 5'4". She's stood there with her green handbag, because I get a lot of signs and symbologies in my head, and then smells and tastes and things like that. So for instance, when I'm doing a demonstration, one of Spirit's latest things with me is, I'm not doing it here tonight, and I'm really pleased about this. When I'm demonstrating, I have got a mouth like a sailor. I swear I do my best, but I'm from a prison officer. I'm a building site worker. My language is very choice. So I'm doing these messages for this lady, and there's a word that's springing from my mouth that I was like, ah. Anyway, it shot out, and I immediately regretted it, because the look on this woman's face was not too pleasant, to say the least. Anyway, so I said to Spirit, right, we need a little bit of help with this while I'm working. And now, if I come up to somebody and Spirit have decided, yes, we've got the link, but they're not the sort of person that likes industrial language, or Anglo-Saxon, as I would call it, I get a taste of carbolic soap in my mouth.
Really?
Yeah, so the link is with that, is that carbolic soap was used by some of the older generation to wash your mouth out.
Yeah.
if you were swearing, because if you got the taste of carbolic soap in your mouth, you wouldn't swear again. You really wouldn't, because it is disgusting. It really is. But I
What a
get that.
cool little tool that you set up. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I just, like I said to you off camera, that is how I work. It's the seat of the pants stuff where you just, right, I'm connecting in with an energy, and spirit are telling me something, and spirit are never wrong. That is my humble opinion. So
Yeah.
when you've got something to deliver, just deliver it, then let the client see where it sits and just pass it on. Again, back to my little link there of keep it simple, stupid. I don't, I can't go wrong then, because the bosses, I've always got somebody to look up to. And if I've really cocked it up, they're going to wash my mouth out with soap and water anyway.
Well, listen, because I showed my lack of information. So there's clairvoyance, which is the clear sense of vision. That's psychic sight. Then there is clairgustance, and this is when you taste things. Clairsalience, which is when you smell things or detect them nasally. I don't know what that means. Like you stick your nose and stuff. Clairaudience is being able to hear. And claircognizance is a clear sense of knowing or psychic insight. Clairsentience is when you feel everything through your body. Clairempathy is a clear sense of emotional feeling. I think these kind of overlap. Clairtangency is a clear sense of touch. Also being able to detect psychic information through your hands. And I think that was it. I think that was it. But I saved it. I'm actually going to incorporate that into this new section of class that I'm doing, because it's pretty cool. But I outed myself on a live that I don't know everything, even though
it helps. It helps promote everybody then, because I mean, I did a job a couple of years ago where I was doing removals. It was just one of those sort of going through the jobs type of thing, as I tended to do. I'd not got a lot of work on, so I was working for a local removal firm, and we went to this lady's house and unloaded her garage, which was just full of some treasures. And while we was having a cup of tea, I'm stood there with my hand leaning on the table, and then the only way I can describe it is like a distortion. It's sort of like this. There's a vibrational frequency, and I went like that. And I don't know anything about furniture. I'm not an antiques person or anything like that. But I was leaning on this table. I got my hand on it. And I looked at this lady and I said to her, "Can I just ask you something?" I said, "This is really strange." I said, "But just humour me on this." I didn't tell her what I did or anything like that. I said, "I get a real connection with India." I says, "And I get a gentleman's energy that's coming in around this table. And I also want to say that, that this is something to do with servants and having this in a big kitchen where there's staff gathering around it. Would that make any sense? Do you know the history of it?" And she went, "Oh my God." She said, "My husband that passed away however many years ago was a British ambassador in India. And that table came across to England and was in that garage while they were moved from house to house to house. But they used to move around India depending on what his diplomatic job was." And I totally discovered that by accident. I was stood there with my hand on it, having a cup of tea, and this mad vision went through my head. And all of the lads that were stood there having a cup of tea and a biscuit were stood there looking at me like I'd got things coming out of my head. And I just went, "That's my life, mate." Since I've accepted this, I don't know what you call it, I don't know, mantle. I've accepted that this is the way that I work. These things keep happening. I must tell you one more tale before we move on as well.
Sure.
Now, I am very cheeky. I'm naughty to the point of like the little child that you want to clip round the ear because he's not very disciplined. So I went to do a 2-day show at an event, and I was feeling a little bit flat because I want more than what I'm currently experiencing. So people had said to me that word that I get as a reader quite a lot that I hate: patience, right? I wasn't born with any, and I'm not very good at it. And the older I get, I'm not developing anything. So they said, you need to work with your skills at right and divine timing, so that relevant pace. So there I am, sat there, doing my readings, doing my work, and I'm looking at this lady, and somebody had said to me before I started reading, you just need to be mindful, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. And I went, huh, they can't scare me. I've seen a lot worse. I was in the prison service, do the worst type of thing. With that, the only way I can describe this in my head, and I just want to preempt this by saying I wasn't on any medication at the time, was like a sonic boom in my head. It went white. I then was in the window, which was about 8 foot above me, sat on a windowsill, looking down at me reading for this lady. And I went, okay, I've got off. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong. Put me back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was back in there, and freakiest experience. And if anybody's looking at this now, I can't explain it. But as true as I'm sat here in this room where I am, it happened. But that's spirit for you. It's an amazing experience.
My husband had an out-of-body experience when he was in grade school, just waiting on the line, and fainted, went up. It still freaks him out to this day. He still talks about it, but he's actually leaning into mediumship now. So I definitely think he's got some skills with that. But the first time I astrally projected, I was like, like panicking, and like I was trying to swim in the air, and I wasn't going anywhere. And like I didn't think I was ever going to get back to my body. I was freaking out. Like totally get that. Like, but to have spirit pull you out and pluck you up on a, honestly, but when you were talking about the piece of furniture, we actually had a situation like that too. And I tested Greg and my son Angus. So, I wanted a steamer trunk. So I was going on all like the Facebook marketplace and all the antique sites trying to find a steamer trunk. And I kept finding these really, really big ones. So I finally found a guy, and he had a small one. He was like, this is it's like a half size. Is that okay? And I was like, nope, this is perfect. This is what I want. I keep all my, these are all my tarot cards over here that I use in constant rotation, but I have more upstairs, and I keep them in the top part of the trunk, and in the bottom part, I keep all the boxes from the decks, because if they're valuable, you want the boxes in the insert. So when I got the trunk home, I was pretty beat up. And so I said, my husband and my son were the only ones home. And I said, listen, I want you guys both to touch the trunk, and I want you to tell me what you see. Tell me a story about the trunk. So my son, he touched it, and he sensed a storm, but it was down at the shore. It was definitely the ocean. And when I had already touched it and kind of got the story, and it was definitely, we live in New Jersey, and we're at the Jersey Shore. And Jersey Shore, people would come from Philadelphia, they would come from New York, they would train down here. Young people would come and work in the resorts down here. But everyone, would at the turn of the last century would come here. And that's kind of where this was. So I got a young man. He was a student. He was actually coming here to work. That's why he had the smaller trunk. So it wasn't like he needed all of this fancy, show off clothing. He just had stuff just to work and just pass the summer here. My husband, he goes, I'm in an attic. Like, what do you mean you're in an attic? He goes, I'm in an attic. I'm in an attic. It's dusty. I hate it. It's hot here. I go, okay, all right. I want you to go back. I was like, go backward. You're going to go, in reverse. Go back 20 years. And I'm dying, because like I'm got my hands on it too. And I'm trying to kind of go back 20 years as well from where he is, from his point. And he goes, totally matter of fact, I'm in a living room. There's shag carpet. I hate everything about it. And so in the United States, we had in the 70s this horrible piece of furniture, and everyone that's on here that's of an age will know what I'm talking about in the US. It was this 1776 fabric. It was like this horrible, scratchy polyester, and it like had they did it right around the bicentennial. And it was like this bicentennial Revolutionary War kind of picture, but it was the worst fabric. It was like the worst of the 70s. And they would have like wood on the side, but it was just horrible. Couches, chairs, ottomans, all kinds of stuff. So Greg's seeing that, and I'm dying because I'm looking at the curtains in the room, and they're this hideous gold, heavy, like almost a velvet fabric. I think they were velvet or like, some kind of velour. And he goes, "Oh, the curtains are horrible." I go, "Please, what color are they?" He goes, "They're gold. They're terrible." I go, "Yep, we're there." So instead of going all the way back, like I thought he was in the attic, a little bit closer to a time period in tune with the trunk, he went back to the 70s. I think he was looking at like the 90s where this trunk was in an attic. So, but it's a cherished personal container for our house now. I like the personality of it. It's got a good personality. Keeps all my cards in there. I got lots of goodies in it. So it's serving a good purpose, and I think it's very happy. I always look at furniture and things like that because I do have that sense where I can extract information when I touch furniture, when I touch antiques. I love antiques for that reason. I like to have those things and give them personality in the house. So, it's just the way that I work. But so yeah. So what else was on it? So what do you do when you work with your clients? My goal is to kind of get them down the pathway to something good. So like, say I have a client who calls me up and their marriage is breaking up, and they're upset about the kids, and how are we going to manage this, and is everybody going to be happy? I always say, well, let's find the best path for the optimal outcome. So I will advise them, like, you should do this. If you run into this, then you can, kind of problem solve it this way. But I always give the caveat, like there's always free will. There's always, things that somebody, if you tell somebody they're going to meet the love of their life on the corner of Fifth and E and they decide not to go there, they're going to miss it, So there's always that free will in there. How do you advise your clients? Like, is it similar to like what I do, or do you do something different? Like, how do you advise, not specifics, of course, but how do you advise your clients?
Well, I don't bring much of my prison service background into my work, but one of the things that, and Hutch will probably understand this a lot better than me, there were occasions where we had to get kitted up, and that's wearing all of the protective gear to go in and deal with the situation. Now, I don't know what the sort of clients that you get, but I get all the bloody awkward ones. I get all of the ones that are set in their own mindset. Now, whether it's to their detriment or not, they will continue down that line until something stops them in the tracks. So I say to him, right, we have an introductory thing. You're obviously here because there's a problem that you can't see, or get an issue that we need to get from that point there to that point there. And we can do it by negotiation, hopefully, or we can do it by direct action, right? You're the boss as we take off on this venture. So I want to know what skill sets you've got, how your mind works, how you think, because it's no good me saying to you that I see you doing this if that's not your way, because some people are naturally gobby. Some people are very, very quiet and will be taken to the nth degree. So I talk about the immovable force against the irresistible object. I'm going to clash with you. I am going to be in that place where I'm going to press buttons with you, because what I want from you is not to be proven right. I want to see what sort of person you are. Then when we're properly kitted up, we'll go and deal with the problem. And what I say, you see, you get a lot of people here that I deal with that are very empathic, very sensitive. So they will look at somebody else and go, oh, bless them, they're struggling with this. So I'll stand my energy in front of them to protect them. Not realizing, of course, that they've got a blueprint and they've got experiences that they've got to go through so that they can progress down their life. So I say to them, right, what do you want? So there's 3 positions that you can actually stand when in regards to helping people. You can either stand in front of them and absorb everything that's coming at them so that they are protected, but the day that you have off or that you're sick, they get it twice as hard by stuff. Or you can stand next to them, which is where I prefer to stand, because you've got to go through that shitty situation. But you're not going to do it on your own. I'm going to stand there with you. And then if you've got the stronger people, just go, right, now we've got to get from the thought process to the action stage. Now, what I'm going to do is, yes, I understand that if you're doing something new that you're not programmed to do, you're going to feel nervous. You're going to feel wobbly. It's going to make you feel sick. It's going to turn your stomach over. But you know as well as I do that you've got to get past that point there to that point there. And there's a block. So I'm going to stand at the back of you, but you need to realise, and this is where my prison service experience comes in, that the person, when they go in on the front of a team, so you go in like a triangle, if you're going in to deal with a situation, the person on the front of the person needs to know that they've got backup. And that is what I provide with a client, because there's always going to be that they're going to be the front man, front woman, whatever you want to call it. They're going to be the front person that's going through that door, but they're not going in on their own. So I always say to them, I've got no respect. I'm no respecter of people's reputations. I'm untidy. So when I go into your house, into your mindset, I'm going to open all of the cupboards. I'm going to rake everything out, and then we're going to reorganize it. Then you're going to give me permission to go in whatever direction I need to go. And people sit there, and the most common thing that I get, and I tried this as an experiment once, of having a feedback book. So the feedback book, be honest, put whatever you want to put down, because it won't affect me in the end, because I'm still doing what I'm doing. I'm pre-programmed to help people. You write down what you think. Two most common feedbacks on my readings was, A, I wasn't expecting that. That's not what I thought I was going to get in a reading. And B, I'm going to get kicked up the arse. And I went, yep. Sounds like me. So when I sit down with people, very rarely get comments where, oh, it's not what I needed, this advice, and he wasn't very strong. I have a simple answer. All right, and me. If you want cute and fluffy, go and buy yourself a kitten. Because if you commit your money and your time, I believe that you've decided that I've got the answers for you. And I'm prepared to put my neck on the line to help you through your crap. You can at least meet me somewhere in the middle. And that's probably why I'm not busy. I don't know. But you can do fluffy.
I think, more people need to understand, and this was what we were talking about before we went live, is that, we're not here to just tell you the future and, I sense a man coming into your life. I really want to empower people to, be able to fix their own issues or mend their relationships, or, achieve more, be better, again, like with Hutch and Hutch's Optimum program. I was telling him, we were talking about it before, having that spiritual component of it, where you just, kind of empower people, have them set goals, all that. It really does make sense. If people like you and I can give them this, it's like a warm cup of tea, or hot cup of tea, no one wants a warm cup of tea. It's like a hot cup of tea. Like, let's sit down, and this is going to make you feel good on the inside and on the outside. And it's going to give you some practical things that you can do to, live your best life, have your best week, have your best interview ever, make that sale. We can kind of give you input into that. I mean, I explain to my clients, like, I can tap into the, the likes and dislikes of the guy who's going to interview you. So, so if you're sitting for a job interview, and I figure out that the guy is into equestrian stuff, and, my client rode horses at one point in their life, I can say, hey, bring up something about horses, because I think this guy's into horses. Like, look around the room. And sure enough, they come back and they go, oh, he had pictures of a racehorse that he owns. Like, this really helped. I was able to, talk about horses for a little bit. And it, gives you a common thread to discuss. Those kinds of things, I think, are more parlor tricky for us, but is it still a tool that can help someone achieve their goals? That's not a, out of bounds, if you will. I don't think, that I this one gal that I did a reading for, and she, she was looking for a match. And I said, you're going to meet a guy. It's going to be daytime. It's going to be in a bar. And you remember the members only jackets from the 80s? Remember those with like, it kind of had a Mandarin collar? I said, he's going to have a Mandarin collar jacket and it's going to be this horrible color. It's like this like vomit color. It looks like the color of cat food. I was like, you're going to meet this guy. She goes, and I said, there's music playing. And she goes, first of all, I don't go to bars. Second of all, like, and I think he either had a really crazy head of hair or he was bald. And he was one or the other. And she was like, I'm not into guys like that. And no, like, this is not happening. Well, sure enough, the next month she called me up and she goes, met a guy in a members only jacket in a bar where music was playing during the day. I go, well, what were you doing in bars? You don't go to bars. She said it was a work thing and everybody was going over there. It was like a team building thing. And there was a band playing that had nothing to do with them. And she met this guy on the way out the door and they started dating. Nice guy too. She, somebody that she really liked. Now, did I program her to go meet that guy? I don't think so. I think they were on a collision course, I just gave her, I gave her the Google Maps directions. I was like, here, this is what you should look out for, because otherwise she wouldn't have looked twice at this guy, especially because he had the ugly jacket on. That would have been like a really turn off. But I think more and more as people find out about how this can help, and I still think we're birthing out of the pandemic. I still think people are trying to get back to like a regular kind of life. I mean, everyone's so resistant to like going back to office and those kinds of things. I think the spiritual awakening that we were having during the pandemic, culturally, universally, I think we were having one. I think it slowed down when we started to go back to regular life. I think we started to see it pare back a little. And now the good news for people like you and I is that it shakes out all the the part-timers, the ones that have like just a foot in the pool. Now they get the hardcore people, the people that are really invested in spirituality and counseling people. I mean, you said before you consider yourself a therapeutic medium. I love that. I love that term. I think that's really a great term. I always say that I'm a spiritual consult, a spiritual counselor. But a therapeutic medium is just such a really great term. And you should start branding and like selling cups and stuff. Therapeutic. I saw my therapeutic medium today. I think more and more people are going to start to realize that what we do is legitimate, even though there's no litmus test. There's no, you can't really score it on a scorecard or something like that. There really is a legitimacy to it. Now, the clients that we help will, create that energy that brings more clients to us, which is fantastic. I think 2024 is going to be a great year. I'm going to start doing my 12-month readings for celebrities, and I'm starting to do some for my clients now. Some people like to wait until after the new year, but it's always nice to get a snapshot how you can live your best year ever. Do you do something like that for like kind of an annual review? You should do that. You should like add like an annual review thing in there and have people come and just kind of give them a snapshot. It's like yeah, actually not a snapshot. You put them in like a slingshot and slingshot them into the new year with a whole bunch of positive stuff. I think that I think we're going to see more and more people that are doing that. It's really interesting. When we had the spiritual the age of spiritualism at the beginning of the turn of the century, last century. Part of it was because of the Spanish flu, because people were losing loved ones and they were trying to find out, what's on the other side of that. But another component of it was the industrial age, because the advancements in industry and the advancements in science were challenging the religious beliefs of people. So science was really starting to present a problem for people that were very, very religious or spiritual. So they were looking to kind of level up. So they were going to the seances and to the mediums and those kinds of things, people that could actually talk to the other side and, do something more than just oh, there, we got a troll. Look, we got a lovely troll. Look, I have to share with you offline. I got I was doing a live and I had a troll trolling a troll in Facebook. It was so funny. Like the troll came up and was like, "I will do a spiritual reading for you." And then, whatever the other troll's name was, they tagged them and they were like, "I will do a reading for you." I was like, "Oh my God, go have at it, guys." Like,
Yeah.
but so
Bye.
I think what we're seeing now after our pandemic, I think because of the technological revolution that we're seeing too, I think we're starting to kind of lean into that as well. And the tech revolution kind of goes back to the 90s, the 80s. I think we're starting to see that too with AI, with people really becoming so dependent on social media and these kinds of platforms for industry, for social aspects. I think we're starting to see a collective grasping for something a little bit different and something a little bit more unusual. And we're both very unusual people. So, engaging and fun.
I mean, I say I keep my style of work simplistic, and I look at. So I also trained as a neuro linguistic programming. I worked through all of that, and it personally it changed my life. It's not for everybody, but again, it was like everything that I've studied. I brought aspects of it into my spiritual work. So the thing about NLP is that it helps you structure the content that is going on around you. It's about the thought processes, how you think and why you think. And what we're all chasing, whether we realize it or not, is we're looking for a better feeling. So everything that we're thinking, we're looking for a better feeling. So I thought, right, I can deal with that. If I'm tired, I want to go to bed and have a rest so that I wake up in the morning, I feel better. Right, that's great, because that's a better feeling. But in my life, I've got anxiety. I've got nerves. Right, now where's my better feeling ever going to come from that? Well, I'm not going to get any. But I've still got that energy to deal with. So I needed an alternative path to put on. So because, again, back to this, everybody's got their story. So I designed 2 things and then a third. So the 2 things, right, is I assess my scenarios and situations that are going around me when people are telling me their story. Right, when I've heard your story, what I want to know is from that, where's my better feeling coming from by thinking the thought that you're telling me that I need to think, right? Or if you've cocked something up or made a mess, made a mistake, and you're beating yourself up from it, what did you learn from it, right? And they're the 2 things that are the stock things that I want. So I've got those 2 things alongside. Either I've got the better feeling or I have got the lesson I need to learn from it. The other side of me, for those that get offended by swear words, it rhymes with cook, right? For those that don't, and I design a bucket or a bin, a dustbin, trash can, for you guys over there, on it with a big letter F in it. So I assess the situation around the person and I say to them, right, where's your better feeling by continuing to think that thought? It upsets me. Right. What can you learn from that then? Well, there's nothing I can do about that. Right. So where does it go? So even when I go on stage, I get people at the beginning to imagine that the side of me is that big trash can.
Mhm.
And that is my answer to everybody's problems, because like I said to you right at the beginning, is we go with the and then what? And you use your tools, you use your personality. So I have had all sorts thrown at me. And just to sort of pick up on when you say some strange things, I did a demonstration in one of the places that was about 40, 50 miles from me. And I was very nervous. And as I said to you off camera, when I get up on stage initially, it's that big whoosh of energy. And I was feeling particularly nervous because it was a tough place that I was actually doing this demonstration. And I'm walking around, and as the connection comes in, I'm kind of like pacing up and down the stage and looking there for my first my first message. I would say victims. Looking for my first message. And this gentleman's energy come through really quickly. Put this picture of a tarot card on my head, which was off the top of my head, it was the 5 of Swords. And the 5 of Swords basically represents for me that there's somebody around you that's acting in an untoward manner, is not being, they're occupying your thoughts, but they're not really bothered because they're selfish. And I'm like, oh God, how do I? So I'm looking around and there's a young lady on a phone like this in the audience. Bearing in mind, she's paid to come and see me doing my demonstration. She's like this. And this voice just went in my head. You need to switch your dickhead magnet off. Right. That's what went through my head. Unfortunately for me, that's also what came out of my mouth. So I'm trying to rake this back in because I've already said it. And the strange thing is, and this was confirmation of how spirit worked with me at that particular time, as those last words left my mouth, and I felt really embarrassed because I felt like I'd let myself down by just bringing in my everyday side, her phone rang, right? And she went, "It's him." Because I'd been telling her to switch that magnet off because what she'd come for, and when I spoke to her afterwards, she wanted advice about a relationship. And whoever the gentleman that had come through had just went, "He's an idiot. You need to get rid." And she went, I just can't believe you said that. I said, to be honest with you, neither can I. I can't, I was mortified. But it happens to me so often. So when I get people, I go, right, if we've got a tough problem, right, we've got to get tough. So how many times do you revisit a failed relationship? How many times do you beat yourself up over things that you can't control and say, well, yeah, that makes sense, right? So once we accept that, I get people when I'm working to put a full stop instead of a comma. Because if you imagine, if you structure a sentence with a comma, that can keep going for as long as you're alive and drawing breath. If you get somebody to go, right, okay, this was a difficult situation, but it was what it was, because it has no part in your future. So this is where I have to bring in a bit of sensitivity by saying I understand the hurt and the pain, and then what are you going to do? How often are you going to keep visiting this, looking for an answer that you're not going to get? So you put a full stop there, and once you've got a full stop, you've then got a gap. And then it's your decision then what you fill that gap with. Like I could go on about my childhood forever and a day, but it solves nothing at 51. So I've got ambitions to do certain things before I pop my clogs. But that's the thing about life. That's the variety of life, that none of us actually know how long we've got on this planet. So every hour is sacred. So if you can split your life's hours down into what do I gain from it? What's my better feeling? What can I learn from the experience? If I can't do anything about it or I can't influence it, it goes in that bucket. So this is, for me, is like dead simple with people. You get them sat with you, going over and over and think, and I'll get to the point where I'll say, right, I've told you what I've told you. And it doesn't matter the fact that you don't like what I've told you, but that's where we're at. Now, if you want somebody there that's going to blow sunshine up your backside and what gives you soft soap and gives you an answer that you can cope with, you've picked the wrong person. But I tell them that right at the beginning, because what I want is enlightened people for themselves. It's not about me. The whole work with, I don't know about how you work it, but about being a psychic and being the energy worker, which is where my passion is for them to gain enlightenment so that they benefit for themselves. Where I get my buzz is when they come back to me and say, I've done all of this. Because I'll tell them the truth, right? You sit with them and say, either you're going to go one of two ways with this reading. Either you're going to think I'm the best thing since sliced bread, because it'll be right for you, or you'll think I'm the biggest idiot walking this planet. Either way, and this is bore out over these last 6 years while I've been doing shows, the clients always report back. Even the ones that don't like you, they'll come back and they will say, well, I tell you what, I thought what you said to me was a load of crap. And I went out and I did X, Y, Z. And then I hear this giggling in the background because my guy goes, yeah, but what you delivered was the kick in the pants that needed to get them out of that state of funk. So for me, like I said earlier, I'm bulletproof. It's not about my ego because there's nothing there to consider. I was just like, right, we've got a problem. I'm a problem solver. I'm coming with you. I'll do my best. I'll help you, but I cannot do it for you.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you value your energy as a spirit worker, but there's a process for me where people do what I call post-morteming, that they will keep raking over something to death. And I'll go, right, I do one-shot deals. If you come to me and you value my input, because that's when you put money across the table, don't come back to me the following week saying, right, it's still crap, nothing's happened. Right, what did you do? What did you do to influence your current situation? Well, I couldn't do this because if I'd have done that, this would have upset that. And if I'd have done that, then I'd have been in writing trouble. So you've done nothing then? Well, I
That
have. So
that's one of the really challenging things for me with my clients, like the lost love clients, because everybody wants to try and work it out. And telling people that the relationship is dead and you got to walk, and I know it's scary, and I know he's not coming back, and that I get very frustrated because some of the TikTok psychics and card readers out there, they go, this reading, I just recently started doing pick a card, but I'm doing it a little differently than the ones I didn't like the pick a card thing because of these TikTok readers. And this isn't to impugn anyone's work, but they say, if you're seeing this reading and this resonates with you, this one's for you, and he's looking for you, he wants you to come back, you should give him a call. Like, I cringe every time I hear those, because there's all these heartbroken teenage girls that have a boyfriend that broke up with them. They're not teenage girls, sometimes they're adults, just like me, full-blown adults like me. And they sit there and they're like, oh, he must be thinking of me. It just sets people up for this like huge disappointment. So now you're texting Brad, Brad, please call me back, maybe we can get coffee, and Brad doesn't answer you. Now you go back and you're watching this crazy person TikTok and trying to get another reading, that's for everybody, this totally random reading. Trying to explain to people that have gone through that process where they're watching these videos that are promising them that this guy is pining away for them but just not picking up the phone. That's really challenging, like telling somebody like this is done, like you got to get out, you got to save yourself. There's I promise you there's something better down the road. I promise you universe doesn't take away from you without giving you something good down the road. You just have to follow the steps and do the work in between to get to that, that good place, to get to, that happy relationship. Sometimes people are like, well, is it me? Am I the ish bag? And I'm like, sometimes you are. Like, I've been the ish bag in my life. I've been the bad guy. I don't have a problem saying that. But sometimes that's just the situation you're in, and I mean, relationship wise, it's not like I have like a secret job as like a contract person working for the mob or anything. There's no mafia. So, but I, trying to explain to people, like, sometimes, it's a dead horse and you've beaten it into the ground and now it's a skeleton. You just got to go. You got to go. Sometimes that's a really hard thing, because those are my repeater clients that come back. I still miss him. And in reality, we've all been heartbroken at some point. If you haven't been, you're very lucky. I'm happy for you. But, we've all had that moment where we, cried for 3 months over somebody who broke our heart. But, going to psychics and thinking that they're going to solve the problem or draw that guy back in. That's another thing. Like some of these, I will make you a love potion, and it's in a, milk container, a plastic milk container. They're giving us a bad name. They're giving people like us a bad name, but it is what it is. I actually have a girlfriend who used to go to a psychic that would make spells for her for like $300. I was like, are you out of your minds? Like, yeah, it's like a plastic jug with like some herbs in it. I'm like, I'll drink some oregano and water and hand that to you. And like, carry on. Like, like $300 for a plastic jug of water. I don't know. It's a racket. If your conscience is letting you do that, good, more power to you. But stay away from my people. Don't trick my people like that. So it's just my opinion. But so this was super fun. We've already been like an hour and 20 minutes. So I was going to say we could take some questions. Oh wait, here's a fun one though. Jay Marcus is another reader. And TikTok's crazy. That's involved with the Idaho former. Yeah. Right. Whenever I stay away from true crime. Like I'm good friends with Alicia Wicker, and she does a lot of true crime stuff. I stay away from it because it sticks with me too long. And I even though I do controlled remote viewing, I stay out of the police stuff. I don't want to get involved and start putting stuff up about if there's an MURDER that happens. I don't want to start making predictions on it and kind of muddying the water. I mean, that's I always get worried about that. I know our local police department allegedly has a psychic that works with them. I have a very good inside source on our local police department. But my source has never seen that, so I don't know if it's true. There's a few alleged psychics that around town that claim that they work with our local police department, but I don't have any evidence of that. So, it's oh yeah, Jay Marcus, yeah, crime it's too painful. Like it really is. It's a little creepy. And when I do readings on that stuff, like like the Manson stuff, I'm walking through the house, like I'm seeing what's going on. I know what's happening. I actually did do a reading on the Manson event, and it's just too much, and it sticks with me for a few days. So every now and then I get people that ask me to do a true crime reading for the channel, and I'm like, you know what? I sometimes I think I did two, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. Like I want to stick with the gossipy, fun stuff. We can talk about Harry and Meghan and the royal family, and Bruce Willis has gotten really hard for me to read on because of what the challenges he's experiencing right now, and I'm very upset about the condition of him. So I'm no longer doing readings on Bruce Willis because I just it's just too sad. So, but did you want to take questions? Did you want to say, does anybody have like a quick question for Ask the Psychics? If you have a question, we'll throw it out there. Don't want to keep Rick too long from his.
Oh, don't. It's fine. It's on your time. I'm nothing to do.
Me too. So let's see if anybody has any questions. I'm going to scroll up on our comments too, and just see if there's a lot of talk about Frozen on here. We were talking about Soul, and everybody went off on Frozen.
Let it go. I will answer. I will just pick up on a couple of the comments that I can see on my screen.
Sure.
So people ask me about how do you deal with dark energies and things like that, right? Quite simply, and this is as honest as I can be on this, I don't, right? Now, when I started out with this, very analytical person, say the background I come from, very black and white, very, very nervous about all of this, dealing with a low self-esteem issue and a lack of confidence, that I thought I'll stay within what I can cope with. So what came into my mind when I'm sat there one day, because I don't do meditation very much either, because I was diagnosed with PTSD many years ago after a riot at the prison that I worked at. And I struggle to sit in dark rooms and sit there in the quiet. I get too itchy. It makes my skin crawl a little bit. So I said to Spirit, right, I'm here and I'm available. I have a very active mind that is running at 100 miles an hour all of the time. Right. So I'll commit, but I can only cope with so much. So I need it simple. So what I want to know is, if I sign up for this, and this is what I'm going to do to work with you guys, whoever you're representing, then I need it simple, I need it honest, and I need to be able to feed it back to you if I don't get it. I do not, and this was like, I visualized it like signing a contract. And if you're signing a contract, then it's got to be equal to both sides before you put the signature on it. From Spirit's side, it's quite simple. They've already decided that you're good enough to do the job that they task you with, right? So that's it. It's only us living the human life that have to put in these terms and conditions. So I said to them, right, I've had problems sleeping for years. So I don't want anybody hanging around me when I'm trying to go to sleep. I don't want like people coming in my car and things like that, because I'm not a taxi driver, so I don't carry passengers. So I only deal with the highest and greatest good. So if there's anything that draws to me, my guides, my inspirers, remove it, right, straight away. So there's only one exception that has happened in the 6 years. That happened last year. I went to do a reading for a lady, and what I hear in my mindset, if I'm dealing with anything that is not true and is not of light, I hear a chain link fence rattling, and my wolf guide is like doing the patrol. So I was aware that this gentleman's energy wasn't quite feeling right, but it was sneaky because the other job that the wolf guide does is bring in pets. So he came in with this dog, right? So it came through. So I delivered the piece of information, but I started getting twitchy. I was getting uncomfortable, and that's my sure sign that I'm not happy with the energy. And I looked at this lady, the way that she was reacting to my energy, and I said to her, "You're not happy about this, are you?" I said, "Can you understand what I'm giving you?" She went, "Yes." She said, "But he was very abusive." She said, "So whatever he's bringing through, I don't want to know." So I went, "Right, okay, it's an easy thing for me. Stop the reading. You're the boss."
Yeah.
So said to my guide, "Get rid." Anyway, I felt like this on my hand physically, across my hand like that, and it was holding on tight and actually squeezing my wrist.
Oof.
So I went, "Stop," and I was quite level-headed about it. Stop. Grip still maintained. Stop. Grip still maintained. Right. I'm now going to forget my manners. Get your effing hand off me now. I
Yeah.
says, because if you care about this lady like you're telling me that you do, then you learn that while you're that side, you should learn to listen when you didn't down here. So you need to back off. If you love her, you need, and the energy went. And the energy completely changed in the house. And I said, I apologize about that, but I offered you the chance. I said, I was feeling at the beginning that it wasn't the right energy, but I can't, as a reader, decide without your permission that energy needs to go. So it's the only one time where I've physically been, I won't say I was attacked, but I'm quite a strong-minded person with that. So when people, they might be talking about shadow people in a different way to me, I don't deal with any of it because I know that that's not the contract that I signed. But that's my personal way. There are other people there that sort of do go down the pagan route. I can recommend no end of people that embrace all of that. But for me personally, that's just not something I'm comfortable with. So it just doesn't even come into my mindset. It's rubbed out the second it arrives.
Yeah, my philosophy on dark energy is a little bit different. So and you know, I'm not talking about like, you know, demons or anything like that, but I think that we are all part of an energetic fabric. So, you know, the shady boyfriend that I dated when I was in my 20s, he's part of that same energetic fabric. And this is why I think that, you know, people do past life regressions and they're like, "Oh, I was Marilyn Monroe. Oh, I was Cleopatra. Oh, I was James Dean," because we can tap into the energy of all these other beings because we're all part of the same whole energy. So there are going to be different entities that are on different paths. So one may not be as evolved. It may be a not so great energy. It may be, you know, at a 60% when you're at a 93%. So you know, you can still have those kinds of things float in and out of your life. So you have to kind of accept that there's going to be some darkness that comes with you. Now, wife of a grumpy old man said, "How do we get rid of shadow people?" And the shadow people are a little bit darker than what I'm describing. You know, I kind of take the good and take the bad with you know, your average energies. But shadow people, that's a little bit different. That's a kind of a dark, intrusive energy that's showing up, and for better lack of a better term, like kind of voyeuring in your life. They can't do much. Again, if you are having like, you know, poltergeist kind of experiences, call the ID network, call Discovery. They'll come over, they'll give you a bunch of money to film it. You know, like the fastest way to get paranormal stuff to stop happening at your house is to bring in a film crew or a camera. It will immediately stop. So, but with the shadow people, I saw someone said build a grid, someone said build a barrier. Those are really good things you can do. When we bought our property, the first thing, my neighbors thought I was nuts. I'm out there with, crazy smudge stick running around the property, smudging the whole perimeter, smudging the whole property. Just getting rid of the energy and the essence of the last family that was here. I burn incense regularly. I throw salt into the corners regularly, not a ton, just a little bit right before I sweep up. I'll do it every quarter, every season. I just throw a little bit of salt in there. It absorbs the energy. You sweep it up. I always sweep from the front of the house to the back of the house and just kind of move the energy out. Preserving the energetic force field on your house is really important. Those kinds of things contribute to it. In 2024, I'm going to do more and more of the Charming Homes features on my channel. So you guys are going to get some tips and tricks for magical living, fun stuff like that. I'm trying to put some more stuff into the newsletter as well. So people would just pop onto the newsletter and click on a link and go look at an article. But I practice keeping the white light in my house. Just bring the white light down, breathe it out. I do it before every reading. I do it before every day starts. I just bring white light into my head from the universe, blow it out, and blow a big bubble around my house, my neighbors' houses, just kind of our whole area here. Now, those of you that have followed me for a while, I interfered with the GPS here. Like, it's a little hard to GPS our house, but you can get to the street across the street. So I just tell people to Google the street across the street and they can get here. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with putting up a force field. We are kind of, risk averse here. So I think doing those kinds of things will help with that. But you have to create an environment that discourages those kinds of entities from coming in. They're not there all the time. They drift in, they drift out. But to discourage them is really a good practice. You have to be consistent about it. So keeping things pure as thoughts. I mean, shadow people sometimes, we have people with substance abuse problems or really intense things going on. Sometimes we will have more occurrences of that kind of stuff. So if you're lowering your vibrational field, you could bring in some sketchy stuff. And Lorraine Warren, the famous paranormal investigators, I found out years ago that the Amityville thing was possibly a little bit sketchy. So if you go on YouTube, you can find out, there's a few videos about how they were a little bit of a charlatan. He was a bit of a charlatan. There's a bit more to them than them just going in and doing these events. So, if you get the wrong professionals in there, sometimes they can exacerbate a situation. They can say, oh, like you need a demonologist, you need a you need these Ghostbusters to come in, for lack of a better word. I have friends that are paranormal investigators, and we have a great time with them. We love them, Sandy and JT. They're fantastic people. But they don't go into anybody's house and say, hey, give us $50,000 and we'll get rid of your ghost. They go in there and try to get more evidence, that's really the goal. But, people that are going to, promise to get rid of some gnarly stuff at your house for a lot of money, I'm always cautious of that. There's some people out there that'll do that. So, Karen gave a good thing, dark energy will affect everybody's mood in the house. So if you elevate your mood, it becomes less of a positive environment for them to be in. So I do think that's a good thing. This could explain it. There's a dirt road where a lot of addicts hang out. The amount of shadow people down there. Yeah, that's probably what it is. So you know what? I would just very politely show that shadow guy to the door. A little bit of salt. You'd be surprised if you chuck a little salt at them, they will, go right away. Not from personal experience. I did have a shadow in my last condo. I had a shadow there, and no uncertain terms told that one, you're out of here. Beat it. And I threw some salt into the corners of the house, vacuumed, and just kept bringing some white light energy into the house. And yeah, it was just the one time, just on the one time. So my kids were babies then. So I was like, not on my watch, get out of here. So I didn't want them scaring anybody, because I like to sleep and they like to sleep. So, I didn't want anybody waking up in the middle of the night. So let's see, did we get anybody else, any other inquiries here? Hi, I have a teenager here. So with that, so Rick, oh, wait a minute. No, wife is like an insult. Yeah, they think they can be there. Yeah, it is an insult. So Rick, I say we wrap this up for tonight, but we should do this again. Maybe we'll do something a little different. Everybody got to know you. My subs got to know you this time. But we'll figure out. We could do another. Oh, my son he is like a shadow person. And he wears a lot of cologne too. So you can smell him. Oh my God, he like left this cloud of cologne. So he's of an age. But so Rick, would you like to do this again? Like, you want to? We'll figure out another time to do this again, and maybe we'll talk about celebrities. We could take requests from people in the comments. We could write our own path. The future is ours.
I'd be absolutely honored to do it. I really would.
Awesome. I would be honored to have you here. So,
thank you.
I think you're super cool. And I love that, I have other professionals that I can talk with. Sometimes people are so competitive in their industry sometimes. And, I people that are going to get a reading from me may not resonate with you. People that get a reading from you may not resonate with me. So I think, I'm all Jersey and, American over here like a dork. So it's I think there's plenty of room in every industry for all kinds of different people, and I like supporting people that I know are really honest and really true in this kind of a practice. So it's I'm very glad that we're friends. I'm very glad that we have this relationship, and I am going to come over to England. I am going to come over. I don't know when, but I'm going to come over. We're all going to go out to a pub, and I'm going to see all the ghosts in the pub, and we're going to keep drinking with them. So, all right. So, everybody, we are going to sign off. Rick, stick around. We'll chit chat for a few minutes after. And everybody have a great weekend. I may put up some videos over the weekend, but if you haven't, I'm going to put it up one last time. Go over and subscribe to Rick Paul. He is also on Facebook. So I will do a share onto, I'll share his Facebook onto my Facebook, because that's a little bit easier to do. So you can follow him on either. He does lives on both. So get in there and go see what he's doing on his own when he's solo. Okay. See you guys later.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Appreciate your time.